inside the Panther, Germany's formidable big cat. Whether you're deep in the wilderness or on the battlefields of World War II, it pays to be wary of big cats. One of the most legendary tanks of that conflict was Germany's Panzer V Panther, a machine that struck fear into the hearts of the Allies who faced it. While the hunt for a Panzer IV replacement began in 1938, the Panther's true genesis can be traced to Operation Barbarossa in 1941. Despite the overwhelming success of the early stages of the invasion, German High Command grew increasingly concerned about how their Panzer IIIs and IVs stacked up against the Soviet T-34s and KV-1s they were encountering. After thoroughly studying captured T-34s, a competition was launched to develop a new medium tank that could compete. Several prototypes were pitched by companies like Krupp, Daimler-Benz, and others. The winning design came from Maschinenfabrik Augsburg-Nürnberg, MAN, selected in late 1942. After a few final adjustments, the new tank entered production in January 1943, officially designated as the Panzerkampfwagen V Panther. Its combat debut came that July on the Eastern Front. Over the course of the war, the Panther saw several variants. Confusingly, the first to enter production was the Ausf, D, Ausführung being German for version. This was followed by the Ausf, A, and then the Ausf, G. This goes against typical German tank naming conventions where the first in a production run gets the A designation, then B, and so on. The G variant was the last production Panther to see combat. Plans existed for an F variant with an updated turret and a Panther II, but the war ended before either made it to the production line. The AUSFG was essentially an upgrade of the AUSF, A on a redesigned chassis, featuring modifications to make production easier and cheaper. The Panzer AUSF's G was a substantial machine, 29 feet long, 11 feet wide, and 10 feet high, or 8.86 meters by 3.42 meters by 3.1 meters. It weighed in at 45 metric tons, slightly heavier than the D variant, but still considerably lighter than the Tiger, which tipped the scales at 54 tons. The Panther was designed as a more compact and maneuverable alternative to the Tiger series and was classified by German High Command as a medium tank. Like all Panther versions, the AUSF G had a 5-man crew, a commander, driver, gunner, loader, and radio operator, who also doubled as a machine gunner. The commander was positioned in a cupola at the rear of the turret, behind the gunner and loader. The driver sat lower in the hull on the left side, with the radio operator to his right. In earlier versions, the driver viewed the outside through an armored viewport cut into the hull. To mitigate this obvious weak point, the opening was replaced by a single traversable periscope, which also had the added benefit of simplifying the production process. The main gun of the Panzer AUSF G, like all other Panther variants, was a 75mm high-velocity cannon. While this was the same caliber as the M4 Sherman's main gun, the Panther's weapon achieved a much higher muzzle velocity due to a larger powder charge and a longer barrel. This gave the Panther's main gun excellent armor penetration against Allied tanks. The AUSF-G carried 82 rounds of ammunition for its main gun, a slight increase over the 79 rounds of earlier versions. The Panther's secondary armament consisted of a pair of MG-34 7.9 2mm machine guns. One was mounted coaxially with the main gun in the turret, and the second was located in the bow, operated by the radio operator. The AOSF-G, like all Panther versions, employed sloped armor known as glacis plates, a design inspired by studies of the Soviet T-34. This feature significantly increased protection while reducing weight. To further lighten the vehicle, the sides and rear had thinner armor than the front. The Panther's frontal armor was 80 millimeters thick, and thanks to its sloping, it meant an enemy shell would effectively have to penetrate around 100 millimeters of armor, a feat many Allied guns, especially the 75 millimeter cannon of the M4 Sherman, struggled to accomplish. The sides and rear of the Panther were thinner at 45 millimeters, and the tank's top was relatively thin at 30 millimeters. Due to the strength of the frontal armor and the relative vulnerability of the flanks, Allied tank crews would try to maneuver around the Panther's side to score a kill. The AOSF-G also featured thicker side skirt armor compared to earlier variants, which protected the upper portion of the tracks and suspension system. The Panther Ausf-G was powered by a Maybach 5 12 water-cooled petrol engine, capable of generating 600 horsepower. It could propel the vehicle to a top speed of 46 kilometers per hour, 28.5 miles per hour. Its fuel capacity was 730 liters, 190 gallons, giving the Panther an operational range of around 200 kilometers, 124 miles. The Panther AOSF-G utilized a Zekef A7200 transmission, which allowed for 7 forward gears and 1 reverse. Throughout the war, approximately 6,000 Panthers were built, with the AOSF-G making up the majority at around 3,000. They were produced by a number of manufacturers, primarily Maschinenfabrik Augsburg-Nürnberg, but also Maschinenfabrik Niedersachsen-Hannover and Daimler-Benz. A handful of Panther AOSF-Gs were equipped with the state-of-the-art FG-1250 Sperber Sparrowhawk infrared night fighting scope. This device was located in the commander's cupola, connected to an image converter and a mechanism that sensed the elevation of the main gun. This gave the commander limited night vision up to 600 meters away, though only the commander had this capability, with the rest of the crew relying on his orders. It's unclear how many were equipped with this technology, with estimates ranging from around 20 to over 50. In January 1945, it was ordered that all Panthers would have this feature, though it's unknown if this was fully carried out. Despite its advantages, the Panther wasn't without its flaws. Like most German tanks, they were far more complex and unreliable compared to their Allied counterparts. First up was the track and suspension system. Like most German tanks, the Panther utilized 18 interleaved road wheels that overlapped each other. This configuration gave the tank better mobility and more evenly distributed its weight, but it came at the cost of complexity. To repair the suspension system, several overlapping wheels would have to be removed to access the internal workings, a complex and time-consuming task, especially in a war zone. Many of the earlier Panther variants suffered from engine and transmission problems, with significant numbers being out of action due to mechanical failures. By the time the AOSF-G was produced, many of these issues were mitigated, but the Panther generally suffered from reduced reliability compared to its Allied counterparts. Another flaw lay in the Panther's armor. While its sloped design was generally effective at deflecting enemy shells, as the war progressed and Allied strategic bombing ravaged German industry, flaws in the manufacturing process made the steel brittle. Even if a shot was deflected, there was a risk that the impact would shatter the metal, damaging the tank beyond repair or leaving it vulnerable to a follow-up shot. The final major flaw of the Panther was its limited production run. Of all variants, only about 6,000 were built, with around 3,000 being the Ausf SFG, a stark contrast to the estimated 84,000 T-34s and 50,000 M4 Shermans they faced. Any advantage in quality was often nullified by sheer weight of numbers. The Panther first saw combat on the Eastern Front in July 1943. From then on, it served in every operational theater where the Wehrmacht deployed tank forces until the German surrender in May 1945. During that time, the Panther earned a reputation as one of the finest tanks used by the Germans, feared and respected by the Allies who faced it. Many argue it was the best tank of the war, and despite its flaws, it could certainly be considered among the top armored vehicles of World War II.